Hutch Mansell, a seemingly ordinary man, returns home by bus after a hard day. But his mood is clearly ruined and he's waiting for some relief. Not far from the bus, the car rumbles over a bump in the road and 5 drunken young men fall out of it. They laugh loudly, exchange crude jokes, and head toward the bus. Hutch looks at them and thinks to himself, when God closes one door, he opens another. He almost wishes the bus driver would have a stroke of insight and let these troublemakers inside. And indeed, the driver, feeling pity or fear of the hooligans, opens the door. The company, barely getting in, starts harassing the passengers. One of them chooses a quiet man with a book as a target. Drunken taunts and threatening gestures make Hutch want to intervene. Accumulated fatigue takes over, and Hutch makes up his mind. He approaches the driver, takes the bus keys from him, and literally pushes him outside. He then pulls out a gun, but immediately shakes the bullets out of it, showing that he is not going to use it. He looks at the hooligans and coldly warns them. Now I will teach you a big lesson. The youths, not taking the threat seriously, start laughing at Hatch, thinking he is an old man who will not be able to fight back. However, their laughter quickly turns into screams of pain when a fight breaks out. Hutch takes a few punches, but skillfully parries them, and despite his opponent's numerical advantage, gains the upper hand. When one of the guys tries to attack him with a bottle, Hutch intercepts it and smashes it over his head. The fight escalates when the attackers pull out knives. Hutch wraps his watch around his fist and strikes harder, only then noticing the knife lodged in his body. He cold-bloodedly takes it out and uses it against his attackers. The situation becomes increasingly chaotic as Hutch is thrown off the bus, but he gets up, gathers his strength, and gets back on. At this point, even the most confident of bullies begin to realize that it's best not to mess with this man. Hutch quickly neutralizes them all, leaving one of them breathless after a punch to the throat. Showing unexpected concern, he makes a cut in his neck and inserts a cocktail tube so he can breathe. Finished, he calmly apologizes to the driver for the mess, hands over the money for the cleanup and walks away, leaving everyone in shock. After a fight on the bus, Hutch returns home. He enters a quiet, cozy house where he is greeted by his wife, Becca, and children. However, instead of a warm welcome, the usual chilly atmosphere awaits him. His relationship with his wife seems empty, devoid of the intimacy of before. Becca lies in bed, paying almost no attention to her husband, while her son and daughter are busy with their own affairs. This ordinariness hides a deeper problem. Hutch feels that his life has become boring and predictable. He longs for the times when his days were filled with adrenaline and a sense of risk. In the kitchen, Hutch drinks coffee and looks at an old photograph of him with his brother and father. These faces remind him of a past he tries hard to hide from his family. At night, Hutch can't sleep. He sits down in a chair and begins to reminisce. We see fragments of his former life, brutal operations, covert missions, and blood on his hands. It turns out that he was a professional liquidator, an auditor, who was called in when the most dangerous enemies needed to be taken out. But years ago, he decided to leave that life to try and become an ordinary man. However, a recent fight on the bus does not go unnoticed. One of the attackers, seriously injured, turns out to be the younger brother of Yulian Kuznetsov, a powerful crime boss with Russian roots. When Yulian learns of the attack, he begins to search for the one who dared to humiliate his family in such a way. His cold and cruel nature leaves no doubt. He will not rest until he finds the culprit. Meanwhile, Hutch begins to feel that he is being watched. He notices suspicious cars near his home and later finds strange markings in his bank transactions. Realizing that his peace of mind is once again threatened, he decides to act first. He visits his father, David, who lives in a nursing home. Their meeting seems ordinary at first glance, but a hidden power is felt between them. David, a former intelligence agent, immediately realizes that Hutch is back in the game. "Are you sure you're ready to go through this again?" he asks, to which Hutch only nods silently. Soon, Hutch is off on a reconnaissance mission. He infiltrates the offices of Julian's criminal network, hacking into their systems and gathering information. Finding data on Julian's connections, his plans, and most importantly, his whereabouts. Along with this, he takes something valuable: money and documents belonging to Julian, thus challenging the underworld. Hutch's quiet life takes a dramatic turn when the thieves who broke into his house are identified. A sense of unfinished business stirs within him, but it's not about the stolen watch or any material loss. It's about his daughter's bracelet, something deeply personal. His restraint finally snaps. Armed with nothing more than his determination, Hutch tracks the couple responsible to their rundown apartment. Inside, he discovers a harsh reality. They're a struggling pair with a sick infant, stealing out of desperation rather than malice. This moment is pivotal, not because Hutch forgives them, but because it deepens his own inner turmoil. The moral clarity he once relied upon as a trained operative is clouded by shades of grey in his new suburban life. Leaving without violence, Hutch begins to channel his frustration differently. His break from the ordinary comes when a group of drunk, rowdy men board a city bus. It's a chance encounter, but Hutch doesn't see it as random. He sees it as an outlet. These men harass passengers, and Hutch steps in, his instincts taking over. The ensuing brawl is brutal and chaotic. Hutch doesn't just fight, he dismantles them with calculated ferocity. It's not about justice, it's about reclaiming the version of himself he thought he'd buried. But it's also a warning to himself. The man he's tried to suppress is far from gone. By the end of the fight, Hutch is bloodied but alive, dragging himself home with a renewed sense of clarity. Yet this clarity isn't comforting. It's the realization that the life he's built is unsustainable. His family might never understand the depths of his transformation, but the world he once inhabited, a world of violence and chaos, is calling him back. The fallout from Hutch's bus altercation comes swiftly and violently, pulling him back into the chaos he once left behind. Among the injured was a man named Teddy Kuznetsov, the younger brother of Yulian Kuznetsov, a powerful and ruthless Russian mob boss. Yulian's thirst for revenge sets the stage for a collision course between his syndicate and Hutch's reawakened instincts. As the pieces fall into place, Hutch begins to shed the facade of suburban mediocrity. His training resurfaces as he methodically prepares for the impending storm. There's no hesitation, no remorse, just a calculated acceptance of what must be done. Yulian, informed of the incident, doesn't treat this lightly. His men begin hunting for the mysterious assailant who dared to harm his family. However, Hutch isn't one to sit idly by. He strikes first, storming into Yulian's operation with surgical precision. What begins as a warning quickly escalates into full-blown warfare. In the midst of this, Hutch confronts his family's vulnerability. His wife, Becca, begins to see glimpses of the man she married but never truly understood. The guarded and methodical Hutch she loved is now someone entirely different, someone deadly. Their children, though shielded from the violence, sense the shift in their father. Hutch's retaliation draws Julian's full attention. The mob boss discovers Hutch's true identity, learning he was once an auditor, a government operative deployed to eliminate high-value targets that couldn't be neutralized by conventional means. This revelation only fuels Julian's obsession. Realizing his family's safety is compromised, Hutch sends them away, embracing the solitude of his old self. The man he once buried has fully emerged, and there's no turning back. Armed with every weapon at his disposal and an arsenal of makeshift traps, Hutch prepares his home for the inevitable siege. His quiet, suburban existence is stripped away, replaced by a battlefield. As Julian and his men close in, Hutch reflects on the life he tried to build and the man he tried to become. The clash between his past and present has reached its breaking point, and the only way out is through. As night falls, Hutch transforms his ordinary suburban home into a war zone. The silence of the neighborhood is shattered when Julian and his men arrive in force, determined to end Hutch's reign of terror. But Hutch, with his meticulous planning and years of experience, is ready. The assault begins explosively. Julian's men pour into the house, only to be met with an onslaught of booby traps that turn Hutch's home into a death trap. Rigged explosives, hidden blades, and strategically placed obstacles take out the first wave of attackers, leaving chaos and destruction in their wake. Hutch moves through the carnage with lethal precision. His combat skills, honed during years as an auditor, are on full display. He uses the environment to his advantage, turning everyday household items into weapons. The scene is a brutal reminder of the life Hutch once led, a life he's more than capable of reclaiming. Meanwhile, Julian watches the carnage from a distance, growing angrier with each passing moment. His men, once confident in their numbers, are now hesitant, realizing they're dealing with a predator. Despite his skill, Hutch isn't invincible. He takes hits, enduring cuts and bruises as the relentless waves of attackers keep coming. But each injury only fuels his determination. Hutch's focus remains on one thing: survival. As the fight reaches its peak, Hutch's home becomes unrecognizable. Fire and smoke engulf the once peaceful setting, a stark contrast to the quiet life he tried to build. Yet in the chaos, Hutch finds clarity. Finally, Julian steps into the fray, determined to handle Hutch himself. The two face off in a climactic battle, exchanging blows in a fight that's as much about principle as it is survival. Julian, a man of arrogance and entitlement, underestimates the resolve of someone who's been pushed to the edge. Hutch outmaneuvers Julian, using his surroundings and sheer willpower to gain the upper hand. In a final, brutal moment, Hutch delivers a killing blow, ending the mob boss's reign once and for all. As the smoke clears, Hutch surveys the wreckage of his home, his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. The battle is over, but the echoes of his actions will reverberate far beyond this night. Exhausted but alive, Hutch retrieves a small, hidden item from the ruins, a keepsake from his days as an auditor. It's a quiet acknowledgement that, while he may have tried to leave his past behind, it will always be a part of him, The aftermath of the siege is both grim and liberating. Hutch walks through the smouldering ruins of his home, reflecting on the path that led him here. The life he tried to build with his family, quiet, safe, and unremarkable, has been irreversibly shattered. But in its place, he finds a renewed sense of purpose and identity. As sirens wail in the distance, Hutch gathers what little remains of his belongings. His family, having been sent to safety before the assault, is foremost on his mind. Despite the chaos, his wife and children represent the stability he's determined to protect, even if it means embracing the darker parts of himself. Authorities arrive at the scene, but Hutch slips away before they can detain him. His training makes him a ghost, vanishing into the night without a trace. It's not the first time he's disappeared, and it likely won't be the last. Hutch reconnects with his family in a safe house, far from their now destroyed home. The reunion is emotional, but tinged with an unspoken tension. Becca and the children see Hutch differently now. The man they thought they knew, a mild-mannered husband and father, has revealed a side of himself they can't quite reconcile. Yet there's an unshakable bond between them. Becca, though conflicted, sees the lengths Hutch has gone to protect them. Her initial reservations give way to a reluctant understanding. The love between them, though tested, proves resilient. Hutch takes time to explain his past, though he spares them the grislier details. He assures them that everything he's done has been for their safety, and that his only goal is to ensure they can live without fear. While his children remain young and impressionable, they look at their father with a mixture of awe and confusion. With Julian and his organization dismantled, Hutch sets out to erase any remaining threats. He contacts a few old acquaintances from his auditor days, leveraging his network to ensure no loose ends remain. These moments reveal a man who, while ready to move forward, understands the importance of thoroughness. One by one, he neutralizes minor players connected to Julian's empire, ensuring no one will come after his family. These missions are swift and calculated, a stark reminder that Hutch hasn't lost his edge. The film's closing moments hint at a future where Hutch learns to balance his two identities. He and his family relocate, moving to a modest home in a quiet town. This time, however, Hutch is prepared. The basement of their new house is transformed into a safe room, stocked with weapons and supplies. Hutch embraces a middle ground between the family man he aspired to be and the deadly operative he once was. He resumes a semblance of normal life, but the audience knows he's ready for whatever challenges lie ahead. In a poignant final scene, Hutch receives a mysterious call. The voice on the other end doesn't need to say much. The implication is clear. Hutch's past isn't done with him yet. He hangs up, a small smile playing on his lips. For the first time in years, he feels alive.